Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. How's it going for you, man?
Going pretty good. Going pretty good. So I'm excited. This is going to be really fun. You're one of the people that I've kind of looked up to. I heard a lot of great things about your time as a coach with different teams, and a couple of great things from players that I respect. So I was like, all right, we got to get this guy. We got to get this guy on. So do you want to kind of introduce yourself to chat for those folks that don't know who you are or like what your past as a coach has been?
Oh yeah, sure, I can. My name's Faustus. I've been a coach in Overwatch for I think 4 years. Yeah, it's been a while. I coached Gladiators, Angry Titans. I'm currently on New Kings, and I coached a bunch of other teams, but they didn't do so hot. So we're not going to mention those.
Okay. Was it all your responsibility? Did you just permanently like throw them under the bus? You just ruined their chances of winning the game, or was it like?
Yeah. Of course.
Okay.
That was terrible.
Okay.
Absolutely terrible.
Okay. So it wasn't like
Uh,
Elo hell in coaching at all.
no. I fully blame myself. I was bad. I was bad.
Okay. Okay. So I have like a little list of questions typed up, and we'll do it organically. Like you don't have to stay within the structure. If one point leads to another, we did this with Packington where he just kind of like went all over the place, and I just kind of like would be like, well, that part of the question wasn't answered. Do you want to touch on that? So feel free to kind of go with this as you like. This is more of a discussion rather than an interview. So the first one, I guess, to get the ball rolling was like, what got you into Overwatch coaching initially?
Yeah. I was trying to think about this yesterday because it was a bit of things. Because I started coaching when I was in college. So I started off this being the first game that I got really good at. I got top 500 in season 3.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever looked at my profile, it's like I was really bad, and then I got 3,800, and then I got 4,400.
Wow. Okay. So big jumps.
Yeah, big jumps. And then I started off as a Ryan player, and then ended up as an Ana player.
Okay, that's actually coming uncomfortably close to my experiences as well.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes, really.
Okay.
Okay, just because when Ana came out, Ana was very fun, so I had to play her.
Sick.
So I did that. I was on a team. Our name was a meme. It was called Really Bad Guys, which
So you played?
which has some. Yes, I played.
Okay.
And then basically me and the main support were like the coaches for that team. And then I went to college right after that and couldn't play as much, so I decided to focus more on college for a little bit. Then one of the players from that team joined another team that was good, and it had Wanted on it. You know, the McCree player, the Screams?
Mhm.
Yep. And I joined him with my friend, and that's how I got into coaching.
Okay, so
initially.
you started coaching, and you were you playing with the team or just coaching it at that point?
At that point, when I joined my friend's team, I was a coach. On Really Bad Guys was the only time I was a player.
Right. So you made that transition from like player coach with Really Bad Guys to like actually just full-time coaching. And why was that? Like why did you drop officially playing? Because like 4,400, that's still pretty good. So like why was that transition, and what was that transition like for you?
I've been trying to try to remember because it's been so long. Mostly the only thing I wanted to go for was I wanted to focus more on college because school is important to me
Mhm.
in getting A's
Right.
or B's. Like I don't want to bomb out in anything. I don't want to make sure that like if I had a college experience, I was doing well at it. And the other thing I did was I played a lot of Magic the Gathering,
Mhm.
and I used to go to tournaments and stuff, and that was like the group I hung out with. So I had a
Mhm.
lot of things I would do.
Right.
So focusing on school plus coaching plus Magic when I was trying to have a bit of a social life was a
So
lot to do.
it's
So
a
I
lot.
decided that instead of playing Overwatch competitively, I would focus more on college and just having fun with my college experience.
Right. Now, most people when they like move from team to team, they're like, okay. Okay. I guess my question is like, what made you start coaching? Because from what it sounded, was it like you just wanted to kind of stay in some aspect in the Overwatch scene?
Yeah,
Without
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Let me think a little bit.
Sure.
The reason I really wanted to coach is that basically part of what you said. I really liked the game. This first game I got really good at. Um, on Really Bad Guys, we got to play versus some of the best teams, and it was very fun. I didn't want to just leave the game
Mhm.
that's the first game I've gotten good at. I know a
Mhm.
lot about it, and I really enjoyed helping other guys try to get toward their dream of being good at a game.
Right. Right. Now you transition. I don't know at what point, how long you were with them, but at some point you move on to Skyfoxes, and that's kind of like, I mean, that's at least what the Liquipedia tracks as your first quote unquote big name team. And you had a pretty cool roster there. You know, you had Boostio, Guru, or most folks will know Guru as a streamer now. Work with Jared, Ace of Spades. It's another streamer that folks know. What was that experience like? Because I don't even know if you were, I don't believe you were head coach at the time. So that was like your first big name. Like, what was that like? What was the team like? Like, what did you learn? And I guess what kind of got you in towards Contenders at that point? Because that was your first, as far as I know, venture into Contenders as a coach.
Yeah, so at first Skyfoxes was called Karasuno when it had Far, Boostio, Ace, and all of them on it.
Yep.
And then we did really well in trials. I was still the assistant coach, I believe, then. And then when we made it to Contenders, I was the assistant coach, and we got. I'm trying to remember if we had him for both or one, because now we had Obasil at one point, and we also had Bosco, and we had JCB. So we had that, and we had some other players come in and do some stuff as well. Mostly the thing I learned from that is I used to have really bad social anxiety.
Yep.
And I was very introverted, not a very good combo.
No.
So basically, what Skyfoxes taught me to do, how to talk to people,
right,
and how to actually interact with guys, to teach them how to play the game instead of, because used to what I would do is I would just analyze the game, look through everything, make up like what I thought was the issues, and give it to the other coaches to go for, because I wouldn't talk as much. And then Skyfox actually helped me learn to do it myself instead. That's why I was a head coach, because I had an issue with actually speaking.
Right. Right. And you do think that's an important skill for coaches. Like, is that, and how do you practice that? And how do you practice that? Like, is it just reps or what?
For me, it was like, how I made sure that I was good was that I would talk to players individually to get to know them a little bit better, which would make me more comfortable to want to talk with them anyway, and have them like actually agree with what I'm saying. The other part is just making sure that when I say something, I know for sure that it's true and I have an example for it. If you're like very positive that what you're showing is good, and you have and you know for sure you can explain it out and give a good reason why, it should let you be able to say what you want. It's like when you're doing one of those things that you really enjoy doing, that you've done a lot, even as a hobby. If you know what you're talking about, you know what you're talking about.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it's completely right, but at least in your eyes, it's right.
Right, right. Like, I think anybody could go up onto a stage and count to 10 slowly, right? Because everybody could do that. That's stuff you could do in your sleep, right? So if it's something that you're confident in, then it's a lot easier, even with like the anxiety, to kind of push through.
Yeah, you can hear about like I'll use singing competitions, because a lot of people that go on singing competitions are very shy.
Yep.
But they know that they're good at it, and they have a bunch of support from people saying that they are good at it. So they'll just like, all right, you know what, I'll try it.
Sure. That's awesome. Well, that's awesome. And I'm checking Liquipedia because I'm kind of like want to like narrate this and kind of get some information as we're going through. Because something really interesting that stands out to me is with Skyfoxes, maybe you can fill me in on this, is from season 2, 2018 to season 3, your roster looks completely different. You transitioned to almost a full Korean team. And this is at a time where I don't think like, I mean, we definitely saw some Koreans in A, but by far, I've never heard of like, this wasn't like a thing, at least at the time. So why was that a thing? And what was that like as a coach? Because I imagine like the language barrier must have been kind of tough. Like, what was that like?
All right, so basically the other thing I learned from Skyfoxes is that if you actually want to have a good team, you actually need some trust, and you need your teammates to be together for a while. And it doesn't actually matter how good the players you have if they've never played together.
Mm-hmm.
So like, for example, Shock got like 3 new guys, and even though they had a month to work stuff out, most people think that, you know, it happened last season when Chengdu got their new guy. I can't remember what his name. I think it was Chen.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got 3 wins, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, this new coach is so good." Well, it really just depends on how long the coach was there and what he's actually doing, because it doesn't take a week to fix a team. It takes a month or 2, and actually figuring out what's up with them. You can't. It's not like a one glove fits all situation for your coaching. You always, as a coach, you understand as well that sometimes you just have to change what you do to get it to work.
Right.
And so for Skyfoxes, I learned that is a big thing, that you have to know what you're doing for each individual, and you have to give them enough time to work with each other. Otherwise, you can have the really strong players win, but they're not going to play very well together unless they just have natural synergy.
Right. So it's the team play aspect That's so important.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what ended up happening for Skyfoxes was that their team wasn't doing very well, and we kept swapping out players because like the management wanted to get quote unquote better players, because they had more experience, they were around for a lot longer. They thought that like at least at that time it would be an upgrade, and then it wasn't, because when we had like for like the NA players, and then when the NA players weren't doing very well, and we didn't do very well the season before that, they just wanted to swap to Korean players, and it didn't go very well.
Right. So the going full Korean didn't work out very well. That's
even though those players like mechanically weren't bad, like they were very good players,
right.
And they weren't like stupid either. But their issue was they're playing on ping, and they've never played together before.
Right. So it's like continually like shifting the blame, and actually you're just making the problem worse. You're not actually
you're
solving.
just making the problem worse. Whereas like when we had Karasuda, we had like Ace, Guru, Far, and Bustio. Maybe they're not mechanically as good as those guys, but they played around each other a lot better.
Right. So you guys actually downgraded with a change of roster, and that's interesting. So like that whole situation goes through, and you're talking about like how like the management was doing this, management was doing that, but you were with them for a little while. Was that eventually like kind of what led to your exit? Because you make a shift over to Angry Titans in Europe, a completely different team, a completely different region. What was that transition like for you, I guess? Because this was right Goats meta, right? Like right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I could ask you a question. If you're on Skyfoxes who went 0-20, or you could go to Angry Titans who got second the season before in EU, I'd be like, I'd
it's
swap.
A tough decision. Yeah, absolutely. And then you transition over to Europe, full Goats. You're working with Elivote, Lulsish, Afox, Onigod, Urki, a lot of names that a lot of folks know, Wrath as well. So what was that like? Like what was it? Did you know those players ahead of time? Did you ask to trial? And then how was your time with that team? Because obviously at the time, especially, they were quite the powerhouses of Europe.
Yeah. So how I got it was that do you know the coach OptiDocs?
Yes, I know OptiDocs.
Okay, you know Opti. Okay, so Opti tried out for Angry Titans, and they gave him the head coach position. I was still on Skyfoxes at the time, and then Opti wanted an assistant coach, and he asked me about it, and I said, "Sure, I'm down to do that."
Sure.
And this was back when Angry Titans was in the playoffs with Ellie, because I only got to coach Ellie for like 2 weeks. That was it. I'm still pretty good friends with them and all that, but yeah, I only got to coach him for 2 weeks. And so I helped them out during the playoffs of that season, and then me and Opti were the coaches for the next season when we got Emil, and then we got Fat later.
Right. And you got Fat as in the player.
Yeah.
Right, of course.
Fat player, PHATT.
Yeah.
The Portuguese main sport.
Right, exactly. So what was your time like with Angry Titans? Because you were with them for looking like quite some time. For almost 6 months. And so what was your time like that? You also went to the Atlantic Showdown. I had no idea. Okay, tell me about it. Please fill me in. How was your time coaching there? What did you learn? How are the players? Like, I want all the juice. You got to share it. Come on.
Okay. Angry Titans was the first team I got on that it felt like everybody trusted each other, and it felt more like we were a family of guys that really, really wanted to win more than just a team. And you could see that because they were together for a very, very long time, even before I got there. And they weren't afraid to tell each other like what to fix, how to work on things. No one was ever mad at anyone. Sure, they get mad at each other here or there, but it was like very, very friendly. More not like they're raging at this guy, now they're really mad at each other. It's more like, yeah, I need you to do this now. What are you doing? And then they'd be like, yeah, I know, and I'll fix it. And then they're fine afterward. So Angry Titans really taught me how much trust matters in a team, and like how much synergy it really matters how long you've been together if you want to be able to fix your mistakes and like trust each person to get that job done. Now obviously in OWL you can see sometimes some teams will come together and this synergy stuff doesn't look like it is all completely there, or something else is wrong. You see like with London was the Hurricane team from before with a few different additions, but there might be something else going wrong with them. And the same thing's happening to the Boston, because the Boston is almost all of the WGS team that Laurie had that won Korean Contenders, and they're still not doing that. But then you get someone like the Dallas Fuel, who have the Element Mystic team, who are all doing really well, So
right. So
there's some exceptions.
We have to figure out like what the deal is. There's something going on besides that, right? Do you kind of like? I guess this is kind of a little early, but I wanted to talk about it now. So you keep bringing up synergy and trust and things like that, and how do you build that? Is it, you talked about time as being obviously a very important ingredient, but for a lot of these teams, they were together for a little while, and like you said, they're still not quite there. So like, what in your opinion is a part of that recipe to kind of encourage that or build that trust, to build that synergy? What have you found to be the case?
That's a hard question because each team is very different,
Mm-hmm.
very very different when it would come to that. And some teams don't even need full trust to be able to trust someone to do stuff. Um, yeah, like at least in my opinion, you need to actually try to get to know your teammates.
Mm-hmm.
If you have no idea what your teammates like, what his personality is, what is it like, what his how it tilts him, that kind of thing, it doesn't give you a good idea what that person's like and how you can talk to them. It's
Mm-hmm.
like when you're making a friend. You can be friendly towards somebody and get to know them a little bit, but if you don't actually try to understand them at all, then you're not really ever going to fully trust his opinion or what he's talking about or this or that. Other parts is like just making sure that you're understanding or that you actually show that you're wanting to win. Dredro is a pretty good example of this. If you've ever talked to Dredro, that man, the only thing he wants to do is for his team to get better and to win, and he wants to make sure that his opinion's heard about that because he thinks that I mean, he's a very smart man, so he's got a very good opinion, and he's a good guy to listen to. And it's very obvious that he wants to win. And when you get that for your teammates, he's a hard worker who wants to win. That's really good for everybody else. That makes them want to do the same thing.
Right. Exactly. And it's
You
funny
can
how
also
you're. Go ahead. I'm interrupted.
Oh yeah, it's also the same thing for a coach. Like if I'm sitting here and the only thing I'm trying to do is make you better, and I work really hard at making sure I do that. What you have to be, there had to be some kind of issue if you didn't want to work with that, right?
Right. 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 And it's funny to me how you were describing earlier how a lot of the things like building trust and synergy, it's not like training exercises and trust exercises. It's just getting to know them, being friends with them. And
I mean,
and you think that actually has like impact on winning games?
Yeah, of course it is, because it even happened for our first month. If you look at our first month, we got 5th or 6th, and then the second month we got 1st. That's because we changed our play style up a little bit to work better with our teammate, like each person, because we got to know each other a bit better and know what each of us likes to listen to, and then the players also got more used to figuring out how to talk to each person individually on what makes them think about the problem better or like what they need to work through and adapt better.
Right.
Same thing for me.
Interesting. So you kind of learn more about like the synergy, more about the teamwork throughout the course of the season, and then you ultimately go to Gauntlet. Yep. What was that experience like?
Oh, Gauntlet was insane. I love that. It was our home turf, and we had some issues that I won't get into, but we played decently well, and we just had a whole lot of fun with it. There was a lot of stress, obviously, and it was kind of crazy, but coaching in game versus IRL, much different, very very different. I could still do everything I would normally do when I was in game. The only problem was that like when we were there, the biggest issue is that I didn't actually have it took them a bit to get me a PC so I could actually see some from bird's eye. I don't know if you've ever tried to coach while watching your players' POVs from above, like right outside.
Did that in Sydney.
It's very difficult.
It was terrible. Yeah, I did that with Sydney. Yeah. I was basically standing directly behind them with a mic. It was awful. Like you end up basically just picking one POV, and trying to get a general idea from that because you're too busy like playing popcorn across multiple monitors.
And like it's really difficult to tell like how split are these guys? How far away are they? Are they actually moving in together? I can't really tell.
Right. It's rough.
Rough. And like it's also something you have when you're in like OWL or other places where you can't see that bird's eye. So adapting is harder. Mm-hmm. And especially like trying to normally coach like that is very very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because what ended up happening is we Team MB was our scrim partner. We scrimmed them pretty much every day, and it was like we were mostly like going even every day, and then all of a sudden we got worse and worse, and I couldn't figure out why because I couldn't see bird's eye, so I couldn't tell what was going on other than.
So you couldn't even do it in scrims. Oh my gosh, that's awful. That's really rough.
Yeah, it was very difficult, I will say.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's frustrating as well because it's like it feels like it's outside of your control as well. It's like a problem you can like figure out. Okay, so you finish up Gauntlet. How well did you guys finish? I honestly cannot remember.
We got third. We ended up losing to Team Envy in the losers bracket, I believe, and then the last team we beat was Atlanta Academy.
Makes sense. Wow, that's pretty impressive. So then you at this point are kind of like because I'm looking at like Wikipedia here, and your time between Angry Titans and time between Gladiators was razor thin. So at that point, like what got you onto the Gladiators? How was that trial process looking like? Because it was a quick boom boom, right?
Okay. So basically what happened is I got a tryout with Laz. I also got one with Valiant before I went to, where is it? Germany for the Gauntlet or the showdown. And so I got they got back to me while I was at the showdown, and so I did an interview with David Deepay while I was there when we were after our games were over, and then they told me they wanted to sign me when I got back.
Sick. It must have been exciting.
Yeah, it was very exciting.
That's awesome. So what was that like? How was experience working with them? Because this is like right at the tail end of the GOATS meta. I think you were there for playoffs. You know, you're working with Surefour and Decay, and you're working with Big Goose and all these big names, and obviously Deepay as well. How was that whole experience like?
Okay. Oh, first I want to say something about Angry Titans. Fox is the best player I've ever worked with. I love that guy. I have to give him a shout out because he's awesome. I love that. I still talk with him all the time. He's like, he was a big reason why Angry Titans was so good and why I'm the better. Like I was a better coach for having coached that guy because he was basically a player coach, and he's the guy I had that was the hardest worker I've ever been with. And he would go into whenever I would do coaching stuff, like sit in the Discord server or wherever and talk about the game or like what we're missing or what to do or like how to fix stuff. He was always there doing it with me. So
and he's still with Angry Titans.
Yeah, he's swag with Angry Titans and Valorant. Yeah, so I just have to shout him out because how much he helped me improve as a person and as a player.
Wow, that's awesome.
Player, coach. Yeah.
That's awesome. I've only had a few interactions with him, but he's been nothing but incredibly polite with each and every interaction. So I've had nothing but good things to say about him as well. So you transition to Glads. You're working with all these big names. You're in playoffs. You're working with Deepay. You're at the Overwatch League level now. I guess there's so much to talk about here. So I'm just going to kind of throw all those questions at you and see what we hit back.
All right. So the first season of doing it was remote. I was living from home, and so I wasn't actually there to interact with them as much, and I didn't actually get a chance to interact with Roar, Void, and Decay really too much. I interacted more with like Shaz, Surefour, and Big Goose, and I talked with Void and Roar here and there, but mostly what I did was write out my thoughts about the scrim and that, go into a meeting with the guys, and then like talk to them about what I thought was some issues in that, and we would just go through it. And then like if we didn't have a chance to do that or before the scrim or review or something, I would just send them like the notes I had. And then like outline, hey, here's a clip or so, here's what I think about it, you can do whatever you want with it. Because they didn't have something set up where I could see them do the review, so I just kind of had to send them what I had, do the meeting about what they were going to talk about, they'd let me know what they were doing, and then I would just wait for them in the scrim lobby.
Makes sense. Okay, so you weren't even actually able to hear what was going on.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Actually, sometimes I could hear through Surefour's mic because he would leave it on, and I could hear what they were talking about.
That sucks. Oh gosh, that sucks. Well, how was your time working with them? Did you, obviously they finished, what was it? Like I think looking like 5th.
I think we got that year we got 5th. Yeah,
okay.
For sure. We were tied with Spark in playoffs. Yeah.
How was that whole experience?
It was really enjoyable actually, like to be able to talk with so many good players and like people that have been hyped up for a bit and like get to know them and see how they function themselves. It's, going into a new team where you're not the head coach, or you're not the primary guy that people talk to is a very, very different experience because you have to learn how they work and how they organize and what they do that works for them, because what works for them is different from what works for me. And you're kind of just like two conflicting personalities that need to try to figure out like what both of you want to work toward.
Right. So it's like complementary work, rather than I'm kind of setting up goals here.
Yeah, instead of, hey, I'm going to do all this stuff and this is how I like to do it. It's more of, I like to do this. He likes to do that. How can we work that together?
Makes
And
sense.
so David's a lot more organized than I am, so I had to get used to that as well. I'm very not organized, we'll say. I'm very I want to do that. I'm just going to do that. Let's just do it. Okay. Instead of David, he's very this is how I have this outline. This is how we're going to work through this. I have this, and this I want to work with. You know, kind of like how I'm going to assume how you do some of your videos and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Where you're just like, you have all these points written down and you want to do that. That's kind of how David is. I'm not like that. I'm like, I'm going to start a video and I'm just going to go with it. That's kind of how I am.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
I've known some brilliant coaches that do that kind of a thing. It's like it's almost like there's like a different artistical styles. You know, you're just like,
Yeah.
I'm impressionist. I'm just gonna draw something and it's gonna turn out beautiful and people are gonna pay a lot of money for it. But I don't really know what
Yeah.
it is just yet.
There was times on Angry Titans where I just thought through what I wanted to work through instead of getting the VOD up, and then I'd go in and have an hour review, and I would just remember where the stuff was at I wanted to go through, or do like a drill, and then we were fine.
Holy smokes, that's terrifying. That's impressive. Yikes. Well, you obviously did well enough because you came back next season as well. And our roster looks quite different. You've got Birdring, you've got, I guess, Mirror's introduction into the league, Space, I guess, Paintbrush for a period of time, but also you're working with Curry Shot, Face. So first off, before we talk about the roster and how the season went, Curry Shot and Face, I know of both of them, have known with them, kind of brushed shoulders with them, moving from team to team. What was your time? What was your like experiences working with those guys? Because they were both assistant coaches along with you.
So my experience both with them were pretty positive. Like we all three really liked the game and really tried our best to figure out what would work for us and for the team as well. We had a little bit of, like I said before, like, you know, when you have conflicting personality, like me and Curry thought of the game pretty similarly. Face and David thought of the game pretty similarly, and usually it was like us two talking about what we liked versus what those two liked, and it was like a back and forth usually when we talked about stuff, which is usually, I think, a good thing when you have coaches. It's really bad to have a bunch of guys that are like, yes, this is right, yes, you were correct, right, I agree with that statement. You know,
right.
That's not very good, because then you're just in the, I'm trying to, what's the word for it?
It's like feedback almost. Let's a
feedback loop. Yeah, you're in a feedback loop where you're just saying this, you know, all of you are correct without actually seeing if whether or not you are correct or not.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. That's awesome. So you work with those guys, and then you got, I guess, a different roster, different players. Or do you have any, like, how was it like working with those newer players, and how was it like, honestly, over the course of the season?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about it, everybody. Space is probably one of the hardest workers you can have, and that guy listens about everything. You can tell that he just wants to improve, have his team win, and he wants to do what he can to win it. Those are pretty funny. If you ever watch, you know, if you watch his streams, it's kind of how his personality is. He's a pretty funny guy. Birdring's actually a pretty quiet guy, but he's the exact same. You heard about the thing where after we played, he collapsed a little bit. He was having such a bad time, but he absolutely wanted to play. He was so mad when we said that he may not play. Like, he actually slammed his desk and went to his room. He was so upset.
That's terrible. Poor guy.
Yeah. So, like, you can, like, all those players really, really want to win and really want to do well. I mostly worked with, like, Shaz and Goose, the Finnish guys. I worked with them a lot. I worked with Bird here and there as well, and I got out like a little bit here, but I mostly work with Goose a lot, and like talk to him about his because he was on Glads for what, three years at that time. Yeah. And so I coach 101s and stuff completely different than the other guys do. Like,
I was gonna say,
way different.
Was that when you're saying you're working with these guys, you talked about how like you're kind of taking notes and doing that kind of thing, but you were also involved in the 101s as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I worked with Goose a lot with how to improve his stats, his how he plays, like changing a bunch of his muscle memory, all sorts of stuff to try to help him out with things.
Okay, makes sense.
Like at one point, Goose was very bad at Lucio at one point, like super bad, and most people recognize that. Like he had bottom stats in the league, but we worked for like a month or two, and we were able to get his stats up to average or a bit above average, and it was great.
Hey, sick.
We were both proud of each other. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So how was that season as a whole? Like your work there? How was that season in terms, like, satisfying, frustrating? Because I
It was
honestly
very
don't.
frustrating for me.
Okay, how so?
Because it was a completely new environment for me. I had to try and learn how to work with someone that's like the opposite personality of me. And even though I don't think David's a very dumb person at all, like he's very methodical in his approach to the game and wanting to how to get things to work, but which is not how I work on things. So
Right.
it was very odd to see to try and figure out how to get that to work with me and see what I needed to do to fix that with him.
Right. So it wasn't so much like there's the conflicting ideas of the game. It was also just how you structured everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And that
Yeah,
was
sometimes you get those people that don't really work together just because of how different they are. At first it was fine and we worked fine overall, and we'd still listen to each other and stuff.
yeah.
But it got to a point where it was just too different between us. Like he's the head coach, I'm the assistant coach. So usually, you always go for the head coach. He would still listen, but it's more of like it was too different between like how we wanted to view the game.
Yeah. That makes sense. Makes sense. So it
And
was just too much.
also like if no one ever knows, like when you get into Owl, it's very stressful, very very stressful when you get toward like the mid Owl and you get further. It gets extremely stressful between everybody unless you're like even when you're winning, you could hear like there was always people playing worse or like getting into their own heads way too much, and you'll have that for all sorts of people. So that also like contributed to it.
Right. So it's like there's more, even if you're winning, there's just expectations for you to continue to win. So
Yeah, like
that makes it
if you
tough.
take that shocker all good all the time, that would be very wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's for them, it's even more stressful for the teams that don't do that well because they have to continue to do well because people have so much expectations about them and what they need to do.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So you worked with them, you conclude the season out, and then you basically just hop from there to Spackle Academy, which is, I guess, originally We Want Owl.
Oh
which
yeah,
was,
yeah. I wasn't actually on the team.
oh,
I
you
was
weren't.
more of like helping them out and just like
Oh, I see.
that's like you'll see on the Wikipedia I have the Dogman thing too. It's like
Yeah.
I also helped out Gladiators Legion. When I'm not doing like work with my main team, usually what I would do is help another team out so I keep with doing Overwatch stuff. I'm not very good at taking breaks. We'll say
Sure.
that.
No, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. I've got some questions in chat, but just I'm gonna let chat know. I want to get to the questions at the end. Just kind of stay on par stay on course for right now. Okay, so that was just kind of like we're helping them out. There's a lot of fun names on that list, and eventually you go full time to New Kings, who obviously just won European Contenders. So first off, congratulations on that. That was very, very impressive. I think it was not a surprise to anybody. Everybody has a lot of respect from you guys, not just from roster strength, but from Scrimbox and the staff and all that stuff. So I think obviously everyone, at least there was a lot of teams I think cheering for you outside of just you guys. So how was like what got you with them, and then what has your experiences been with those guys, including winning the championship?
So the first New Kings had Ellie, Oni, AFox, Seiko, and Jofi, and I'm missing somebody, and Lucas. Yeah, I don't call him Lucius. I call him Lucas. I mean, I've coached him for like 3 years now. I'm gonna call him by his first name.
Sure. Okay, first name basis. Okay.
So obviously it makes sense why I would join that team at first. They're a bunch of players from Angry Titans I know, So why wouldn't I coach those guys and like get back to them? So for them, I felt a little bad because I helped coach them, but I wasn't in the right headspace yet. I was still like coming back from Owl, and I still needed a bit more time to get my spark back on like what I wanted to do, especially for Overwatch, and like just making sure that I had enough time to recuperate, I guess I could say. After you've done something for a really long time, you just kind of need some time to yourself to fix your mental, fix your whatever you have really, even if you do well or you don't do well.
Right. Give yourself some time to like recuperate and figure it all out. So what was it like working with those guys?
Well, the normal Angry Titans guys, it's like exactly how it was before. They're all exactly the same. They're all except they're better. Ellie's a very funny guy. If you've ever talked to him, you ever watch his stream? Very, very funny guy. I love that guy. Oni's a pretty quiet guy, but he's actually opened up a lot more since. He used to be super quiet and not say a whole lot. Like we ended up playing goats around him not actually talking, but he was so good at playing Zarya and he knew exactly what he needed to do. That was never an issue.
Sick.
but now he actually talks a lot.
Okay, so it's like you get your cake and you eat it too, I guess.
Yeah.
Sick.
And then Jofi's actually a good guy to work with. He's got very Finnish humor. I'm not sure how to explain that, but if you've ever talked to a Finnish guy, you will understand what I'm talking about.
I mean, I work with Dala. We've all seen the Cloudy streams, so I think I get a pretty decent idea.
Yes, you have a decent idea of how that goes.
Deadpan doesn't do it justice.
No, it does not do it justice. He was very much like very Finnish humor. A-Fox was still A-Fox, same guy. And then Seiko, new up-and-comer guy. Love that guy. Very hard worker. Does a lot of things. He's a little stupid, but, sometimes you always have that guy.
But he's a DPS player, so, that's how it is.
Yeah, that's kind of how it works, yeah. And then, so, having all those guys together talking about stuff that led me to wanting to coach them again, because they had the roster they started off with was Lucas and Seiko. I'm like, okay, I already like those guys. Those guys are great. And then they ended up getting, who was it? Grathan was the last person they got, so I'm trying to think. I think they got Exo and Dredro right after that, and then KSA. So when I saw the roster, I was just like, I felt like I would work well with them because I already knew I worked well with two of them. From what I heard about Grathan, I knew that he would like me and I would like him.
He's an idiot, but yeah.
Yes, all DPS are idiots. And so I just thought it would be a good fit, and I wanted to help those guys out because I was already pretty comfortable with them and already knew like half of them. So I said, sure, let's go for it. You're a pretty strong roster. I like you guys. We'll try and go for it.
So how did it go?
Well, we got first place, so I guess it went pretty well.
That's awesome. So that's awesome. So what was your run to the championship like? Because obviously, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't know how long you'd been working with the team at the time, but you crapped the bed last month before.
Yeah.
You crapped the bed, and it was shocking to everybody that okay, well, I guess they're losing. That's weird. And then you turn it around this month. So how do you do that? How is that possible?
Right, so
phenomenal. Let's do it.
First month we had a 75% win rate in scrims, and we didn't play any bad teams. We only played the top team. XP when they got second, British Hurricane that got first, SMC that did well. All those teams that got top 4, those are the only teams we played.
Yeah.
And we still had a 75% win rate. And that's your scrim bucks. So we played really, really poorly in the match compared to our scrims. And I attribute some of that to mostly myself, really, because I think that I didn't teach them the exact style they needed to, and we weren't at the point yet where we could think on the fly about what we really needed to do. We played the one brawl comp most places, and it worked out really well. And no matter who we played, we did well. But I think that we got to the point where we didn't actually learn how to do other things because we were winning too much,
right?
Without while doing the same thing. So a lot of the differences that I made was I went and did a talk with each player individually about what we wanted to do. I completely changed our play style. We play if you check out how we played that month versus this month, we're completely different. And I did a bit more one-on-ones with guys, and I also was all right. I have a brain fart. Give me a sec.
It's okay.
It's all gone.
It's fine.
My brain is completely empty.
It's okay. Your brain empty is still fuller than most of the folks I've worked with, so I think you'll be all right.
Thank you. Have you ever had that? I don't know if you've ever had that.
It happens to me all the time. I've
sometimes been in the middle of a scrim. I would have exactly what I wanted to say, and then I'll be say 2 words and be like, it's gone. I don't know what to say anymore.
Are those the 2 words?
Just play the game.
It's gone. That's all. Play the game, guys.
Just go play the game. It's gone. I'll think of it later.
Perfect. But I wanted to talk about if you have just a couple of seconds, I guess to fill the space here, is how is your time working with Grathan? Because obviously he's my buddy, and then you guys pick up Yazin. So what talk first off, Grathan. What's his deal? How much of an inter is he?
Oh, he's very dumb.
Yeah.
I have to talk to him all the time. He wants to play Reaper all the time. I don't understand that guy.
Yeah, he's kind of a freak. It happened over a year ago. That's not my responsibility though. Yeah.
No, he's great. He's one of the more he's one of the smarter hit scans I've ever worked with. He talks a lot more than a lot of other guys. He wants to flank all the time. I had to tell him to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And then he would still do it sometimes. I'd be like, Rathan, here, look. I'd sit him down. Stop feeding. Show him the clip. You're feeding. He's like, but I'll die if I don't. It's okay. Do the other thing. Don't do that. He understands.
That's okay. Good. I'm glad that he can hear. I'm glad he understands English now, because the Irish,
yes.
you never know.
Yes, he tried speaking Irish to me once, and I didn't understand what he was talking about. It's very awkward.
He's probably just speaking English, and it's just you couldn't understand it to the accent.
Yeah,
so.
and now he likes Dree so much he keeps trying to speak French. It's not very good.
Oh gosh, an Irish person speaking French.
Yes, and then Dree just calls him a dog and to stop talking. That's very funny.
That's good. Well done,
yes.
Dreedro.
Yes, good job, Dreedro. He always puts people in their place. It's very needed.
That's excellent. Okay, Yazin, so you guys pick up Yazin as your new main support player, of course. So how well do you think Yazin will play on the Lucio?
KSA had some objections, but everybody else told him, nah, we're going to do it. So he was the only smart one about this idea. Right now, we're going to have to put him on the fair. We're not sure about the main support role.
Oh, okay, that's unlucky.
Well, if we were going to get a Saudi on the main support role, it'd probably have to be Boostio, but
true.
We'll see about that.
Okay, sounds good. And Dreedro is now Overwatch League. So
yes,
what was that whole process like? That's first off exciting for him. He's a really good guy. He got done absolutely dirty with Uprising Academy. So how is that? That must have been exciting for him.
I was very excited to have a bunch of players that have been in the scene a while and actually get their first win.
Yep,
it was nice.
Yeah,
so like EXO and Dree have been around for quite a while and never gotten a win, so it was really nice to get them a win. So if anyone thinks it's a very complicated process to get an AL, it's basically Dree 1. Vala goes, this guy's pretty good. I want to trial him out. We need a new main support. Hey, Dree, would you like to trial a block? Yes, I would like to do that. And that was that.
Sick. Well, there you go. We must have impressed for a short amount of time. I mean, everybody knows he's been good for a while. It's not like that's a surprise to anybody.
Usually it's just, you've been good for a while. People have you on your radar.
Yeah.
You play well in the trial. People are like, okay, maybe I'll pick this guy up. He's pretty good. And then they'll pick you up.
Sure. Well, I think everybody's looking forward to seeing that. And there's one other player I wanted to talk about, or I guess staff member. You work with Empress. Now, Empress is somebody that is actually shockingly not talked about. She's the only female coach I'm aware of, at least in Western Contenders, and she's been around for a long time. Shoes Money Crew, Triumph, Square One, New Kings, Odyssey, and she's got a pretty good track record as well. And I've heard a lot of great things about her work as a coach. So what was it like working with her, and like what value does she bring to New Kings?
Oh gosh, she's so bad. I don't know what. No, she's great to work with. Usually for when I'm doing stuff, I really need someone to work off of. I have to tell them what I want to do and all this stuff, and I need them to tell me I'm an idiot or not. That's kind of how I work.
Right.
She's usually pretty useful at telling me I'm an idiot if I am being an idiot, or whether or not I'm talking about something good. And Dreedro was also very good at that. We'd actually have times where I'd get mad at him because he would go, I don't really like this spot right here. It's very, or I don't really like this comp, or I don't like what we're doing here. It's not very good. And he wouldn't give me a why. I'm just like, I'm going to tear my hair out. Dree, tell me why. Just tell me why. But Empress is actually good at telling me why.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And so she's also like, she also thinks of the game very similar to how I do, which makes it very easy to, like, even though you do have that feedback loop sometimes, you just have to be very critical of yourself. Like I'll tell one of the things that helps me a lot is just tell me, okay, this isn't working. Why is this not working? I look at it. I said this before. That's not the issue. What else is the issue? Oh, that guy's not doing something. That guy's not doing something. Okay, that's good. What else is there? And so I'm also always being constantly critical of myself. And even though you'd have that feedback loop, you can still do that and make sure that you're doing the right thing. And then having the other coach that really works with you well helps that a lot, because you can actually just talk through what your issues are, what you think's a problem, and they'll give you the same thing, and you'll just feel good about it. We've become pretty good friends.
Makes sense.
I'm gonna say whatever.
Makes sense. So it's like you guys kind of have similar, like you guys give each other feedback. Like there's no feedback loop, like you're saying. There's criticism and things like that. But also you guys kind of have the same head space in regards of what we're actually doing. Like this is the actual goal. So it's not like with you and Deepe where there was some good conflict, but there was also a lot of bad conflict as well.
Yeah, and for Empress, it's more of good conflict most of the time.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I wanted to say one other thing. and nope, it's gone again.
That's okay.
This happens too often to me.
You need to have like install a net in the back of your head to like catch this crap.
I really need like a catcher in the back of my head that just make sure that I don't lose what I'm thinking about.
Okay, so do you mind if I like transition to talking more about like your philosophy and like less away from just your experiences? So did you have any previous experience with coaching or leadership prior to Overwatch? Because obviously you talked about like you wanted to stay in the game, but was that literally your first time leading, coaching, teaching?
Yes. As I said, I had social anxiety, so I was never a leader for anything ever. So the coaching thing was the first time, and surprisingly, it ended up working out pretty well for me. At least I think so.
Yeah, for sure. Winning is, I mean, getting into Overwatch League and winning Contenders is fairly good.
Yeah, so it was fairly surprising to me that for something that if you talk to anybody in my high school about it, would never they would think I would be in esports, but they would never think I would actually be a coach.
Mm-hmm. Now, what motivated you to continue your coaching journey over the years? Because you talked about your social anxiety and stuff like that. So like, to me, that instantly speaks of like, oh, that must not have been always very fun. So why did you keep doing it? Was that like, what motivated you to want to build that skill?
I'm gonna have the very cookie cutter answer of I just really like having players be good at the game and being able to interact with those guys and get to know them and help them achieve their goal of being better.
Okay, sure.
Like one of a big thing as a coach is if you're a coach that only wants to win, you're going to end up being a bad coach. You should be a coach that really wants to improve the players you have and the people you're with in order to achieve your goal. Because otherwise, like if the only thing you want to do is win, you don't really care about your players as much. You just want to win.
Do you think that's a strength of yours? Do you think that's a strength of yours as a coach? Makes sense.
You could probably ask Rathan about that. He'd probably agree with it.
Yeah, sure. So we talked about, do you think like the lack of caring is a common mistake that a lot of coaches like screw up in the professional scene, or do you think there's other mistakes that they make as well?
I think it's not that they have a lack of caring. I think it's that they miss that they are not caring as much and they're caring too much about the win. Because it's not like people don't care about the players they're with, even if they want to win. It's that they think too much about how they're supposed to win instead of what they're supposed to do to help that player win. It's very different.
Makes sense. So it's they're caring, but they're not caring enough about the right things.
Yeah, it's like they get stuck thinking about how they're supposed to win against this team, and they're not really thinking about what am I needing to do to improve this player, not just how to win it.
So it's like almost like a more holistic view of it, like from a big picture.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah.
What is something that you've kind of learned about coaching or leadership since you started Overwatch? So you've talked a lot about it there, but is there anything else? Besides that point that you feel that you've improved or learned about over the last couple of years?
I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to do something stupid just to see if it'll work. I'm not afraid to get my opinion out there or really talk with some people about how to be better at anything, really.
Right. So you're not just afraid to fail. You're not afraid to be told you're wrong.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to be told I'm wrong. Like I am very much if I'm doing something dumb, please tell me I'm doing something dumb. I want to fix myself.
Sure. That's respectable. And it takes guts to do that too, because you talked about social anxiety. Well, how does it feel being told to your face, from Dredro? I don't like that. I don't want, that probably gets annoying.
At first I get annoyed, and then I'm like, he just wants to win. I'm completely fine with that. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Obviously, like if you have some things happen, you're gonna get to where you need to lay off some steam, or you're gonna yell at your other coach about how dumb this player is or whatnot. Every coach is gonna do that.
Yeah.
If his coach tells you that he never does that, then he's lying.
Yeah. I've never done that, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. I'm sure you've never done that to Grath, and I'll go ask. It's really important that you have people to tell you you're wrong, and it's really important that you take that, and you don't just take it as why is this person saying I'm wrong? It's you need to figure out why they're telling you you're wrong. Is there a reason they're doing it? Because they're not just doing it because they want to say it.
Right. Okay. Do you have any other stories you'd want to share about your experiences the last couple of years? Because we've talked about a couple of stories, but if you have any after you've just been dying to share, if not, no worries. But I just figured I had to ask.
No, I have some stories, but let's just say they're not very good to say on stream to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, so
I'll just say that when we went to Korea for Glads, I was rooming with Cloudy, and that was a very interesting experience.
I will not ask. What are your goals for the future? Because you've just won European Contenders. Like, are you in this for the long haul, or is it just like making the most of it while I'm here, or like what's the deal? Because
I'd like to make Al again because I like Overwatch a lot. I like coaching it all the time. It's very fun. I think it makes me a better person, and I also like interacting with all the people. I actually interact with a lot of players now compared to before. I know very many people in the scene, and I talk to them all the time about what they're doing, how to help them. Like, I don't even help just my team. Sometimes I'll have talked out like Icy or Cloudy from Revival, or like Lep. I know a lot of those guys and talk to them as well, because to me it's not like, I mean, I'm coaching to help my team, but it's not like I can't help others as well that I know and that want to improve. You know, it's I want to make those interactions and help however I can.
Yeah. I respect that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Do you mind if we open up questions to chat for just a couple? Well, obviously,
sure.
like you can answer the ones that you want to answer. So I don't know if you have my stream pulled up, but
I will answer anything unless you make me say something really bad about someone. Then I might have to think about it.
Sure. Let's see here. I'm trying to look at all. One of the questions a little bit up, Black Dracon 30 says, if you could you touch a little bit more on how your game philosophy was different from D-Pace? Is that something that you can answer?
Oh yeah. So David thinks of the game and how to be aggressive and how to set yourself up to be aggressive, kind of like how Shock or Titans was in the GOATS meta, and what you need to do to achieve that. While I'm a lot more, I want you to understand the game to a point where you don't just go aggressive. You don't just back off. You know what you need to do at the moment and how to play out the map. It's not just here, go after, be aggressive. Like for David, it's like, I want to be aggressive. I want you to understand how to be aggressive and how to go on things and like how to set yourself up to be tempo oriented. I don't think of it that way. I think of how to be like more methodical about what you're looking at and how to take a fight and just know you've won it.
Sure. Okay.
Instead of force to win. And like, there's all sorts of teams that do that as well. Like, it's just a style of like what you like. If you ever watched Revival play in the last when they won, they were very much the aggressive, force the enemy to make a mistake. I'm the one that's like, I want you to force this mistake, but I want you to recognize the mistake and make sure that you know you've won because of it.
Right. Makes sense. We've got a question. How has coaching evolved over the metas? How has the advice given the players changed over the years? That's a very general question.
Yeah. A little hard to answer because a lot of coaching is obviously it improves a lot. Like you know a lot more about the game, how the maps work, what works where. You'll get to the point where you've seen so many patterns of something happening that you just know that's good or that's wrong. And so even though across metas you have to learn specifics for the heroes or like the meta in general about what you're playing versus, but a lot of the general concepts that you would learn always transfer over. Like in your general play, like I said with David, he plays very aggressive. If you want to play aggressive, you can do that with every single comp. If I want to play my way, I can do that with every single comp. But it's like,
so it's like generalities kind of a thing that apply to
it's a generalities thing that apply to everything. But then you just need to learn how do you get that generality to work with that comp in particular in each hero or player.
Sure. What do you think set your team apart from other teams in this season's Contenders?
It's a hard question. I think all the team, like most of the teams, are really, really good. Like you know how I said before, our scrim bucks were 75%. Well, I said to the team, all right, we're gonna start losing in scrims, and went down to 58%.
Oh wow.
So I made them like, I don't know if I made them lose because I wanted them to learn things.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever like talked about that with your players before or anything, but I think that I said it before about needing to learn. We didn't learn. We just played and we won.
Right.
Now I'm like, we're going to play things and you're going to learn.
Right.
And we're going to lose and it's going to be okay.
Right. It's like practice versus performance kind of a mentality.
Yeah. So instead of just doing the same thing every time, I think what set us apart was that we learned a lot of things. We knew how to play a dive comp. We knew how to play Hack Fist. We knew how to play Doom Brawl. We knew how to play Brawl May. We knew how to play all sorts of stuff. We had comps for everything. We knew how to adapt to all different, like we had an answer. What was the biggest change was that we played Brawl and we had an answer for stuff. It was like, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. This time we had an answer for everything. It didn't matter what we played, what map we played. We could do whatever, and we could probably get it to work. We were very flexible.
That probably builds a lot of confidence as well, just knowing it doesn't matter what's thrown at us, we're going to be fine.
Because like at first when we played Ex Oblivion in the lower bracket, we didn't have a good idea of what we wanted to do against the Doomfist, and we didn't adapt very well. While this time we adapted a whole lot more. And like when players went in, they were just very confident in everything they were going to do. Before, we weren't very confident about what we were going to do.
Makes sense. How does a coaching staff for a tier 2 plus team create a successful structure? Like, what needs to happen for them to find success? Again, very general question. Is there anything that kind of stands out to you when you answer that question?
Nothing really stands out because it's all really dependent on the person who is coaching and what they want to do and what their goal is. Like, I have two friends. I was friends with all the third impact guys, like Zenith and Sword. They're way different than I am. I'm way different than them. I'm way different than David. David's different than them and me. Like, it really just depends on who you have and what works for you. Because the experiences you have throughout what you've done is coaching shapes what you think works for you and how it'll work overall.
Sure.
And your personality. So, like, it just depends on the coaching staff that you get and whether or not they want to learn. Everything in Overwatch is always learning. If you go into a scrim of Overwatch and you don't have something to learn, you're either playing a team that's way below your level, or you're just not seeing what the issue or the problem with stuff is. Even when you're winning all the time, you can see that a team has done something wrong, because you can tell that, oh, that shouldn't actually work because of this and that, and you should be able to also recognize that. So you it's just recognizing what's the issue, fixing it, and making sure the coaching staff all understands like what they need to accomplish together to reach the goal that you need to get to.
Makes sense. Okay. I guess we'll do one more question here, and this is, how do you handle player turnover and making sure new people are brought into your vision for the team, both socially and in terms of understanding how the team wants to play?
Okay, so that's actually a good question for me, because I had to do that for Angry Titans. So we lost Ellie and we lost Ludi. Okay, so Ludi was the guy who talked. I'm going to talk about Angry Titans first, because then I can talk about what we're doing like right now, because that'll lead into it. So first, you need to figure out that, does their personality actually fit with the other players you have? Your players can let you know that when you play with them, whether or not they actually like that guy, and they'll probably have unless he's a completely new person, they'll actually know their personality, how they play in ranked, and all this other stuff, and see if they actually kind of like them. First thing is, like, if you pick up a guy none of your team likes, even though he's super good, that's kind of hard to work with at first, because you're gonna have to figure out how to get them to like each other, and then they'll play worse initially. The other one is, like, do they fit really well personality wise, and how well do they learn? If you pick up a guy that doesn't learn very well, then you're gonna what you see is what you get, right? So you're not gonna be able to, let's say, if he doesn't learn very well and he plays the opposite style of what you want and it doesn't fit the team, then you shouldn't pick him up, because then he won't actually fix your team. He's just gonna make it worse because he won't adapt. Right.
So it kind of fits the team philosophy or like mindset, but going into it, so there's not as much of a transitional period. That makes sense. Okay.
And other things is that you need to make sure that other people can feel the whole of what you already left around. So like, for example, when we lost Ellie and we got Emil was better mechanically, a little bit worse at thinking about the game, but he was very good at adapting and fixing his issues. So he was able to get to the point where everybody liked his personality and what he did, and he worked off those mechanics instead of working off of his game sense.
Makes sense.
And then Fat was better mechanically, a little worse at talking, and so what we ended up doing was fix his talking so that him and AFox were the primary shot callers for everything. And then he was better mechanically than Ludi was, so he ended up actually being an upgrade overall for our team.
So it's like you kind of bring in players with weaknesses that you can work around, and then if you work on those weaknesses, you end up having a net gain and like the actual skill of the team that you work around.
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating.
So it's a lot about just making sure that, at least for a tier 2 team, it's not just mechanics, it's also like personality. And sometimes in OWL, you can just use them, you can just have the mechanics and the personality will come with it later on.
Makes sense.
Because your team's already so good and working well with each other that adding that extra guy in might just be the glue that you needed.
Right.
That happened to Glads, actually, when they brought in Decay. Like, for Goats, Surefour was good, but Decay knew the Zarya stuff better, and he just knew how to play the game really well. So even if also like Decay is a super quiet guy, like he in Glads. So even though he didn't have that synergy with the team, he just knew how to play the game really well. So he didn't need to have that synergy. He just played it.
Yeah,
and
he
it
just
worked
fit
out
the role.
afterwards. He just fit the role. Yeah.
Right. It reminds me of what you were saying about who was the other Zarya player that you were just talking about that didn't talk a lot but didn't need to?
Onigod,
exactly. So he just kind of fit what you needed and it nailed it right there. So
yeah, actually, I can give you a good two different examples of that.
Sure.
Onigod in that meta was a very quiet guy that just kind of knew his role, and he would talk about his ult, maybe his bubble sometimes, but it was not very much overall. But he still did his job, and it was good, and he would carry sometimes. On the opposite side, you have Mirror. If you've ever heard Mirror talk when he plays Zarya, that kid is crazy. He can literally micromanage you to play everything you need to do around him. You know how like Cloudy plays Reinhardt? Mirror does that on Zarya.
Yeah. He's like microcreating every single cooldown to go his way exactly the way he wants supposed to go.
He was so good with knowing how to use his grab. He would literally count his grab down when he was going to use it because he knew he would get it off.
That's hilarious.
He's crazy.
That's crazy. Well, it's funny, like how you can build different success, like you were saying about like, different coaches have different styles. You can build around players that have different styles. There isn't bad or good necessarily in that aspect of things.
Oh yeah. You can see that all the time. Even like even though I don't haven't been in the league scene, you can tell like Korean, Chinese, European coaching is all completely different. They play the game completely differently. They do macro completely differently. I know for like One Worlds when EU started doing really well in League, like the biggest difference was that EU would just fight all the time, and they would just like, if you did something here, I did something of somewhere else, and that's how they would like do something and teach other people how to play.
So different philosophies, but it's good versions of the philosophy, right?
Yeah, it's you don't have to just do the same thing. You can see it in AL too. Like for some teams, like actually a good one is that if you go watch Dallas versus Shanghai, the big difference you can see is Shanghai is it's a team. They play like a team. Dallas is very tempo. They still play like a team, but they'll all go do individual stuff all the time. Like if you go watch Sparkle's POV from the Dallas thing, sometimes he doesn't even do anything with Fearless. He just goes off on his own, but he doesn't do something stupid or he doesn't kill himself when he does stuff. So it ends up working out and helping the tempo keep going up. So like Dallas was a much more aggressive, take control of the game type team, where Shanghai was more about, I want my team to play around what we're doing and work off of what each person's doing.
Right, makes sense.
While Dallas is more of a, oh, this guy's doing this, I need to go do this now. Let's go.
Yeah, we joked about the Dallas tempo. It's like never stops. Well, thank you so much for jumping on here. This is really, really interesting. I know we went a little over for time, so I apologize about that. But
that's fine.
But thank you so much for taking the time to do this, and congratulations again on Contenders this month, and good luck in the next, man. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I'm going to Chuck your Twitter as well, so you can. You were talking about your lacking social media impact. Well, right now, it's quite
bad. I mean, I didn't even put my team on my banner yet. It was a joke to them, but I'm not gonna fix it.
And that's at this point, like now that they've made a joke about it, you can't change it, so it's too late. So
yeah, I can't change it. It's too late.
Well, thank you so much for interviewing, man, and good luck next month.
All right, thank you, man.
Appreciate it.